السيدات والسادة الحضور الكرام، الآن نتشرف بدعوة مستر روجر أتيه Leadership Solution Partner and Partnerships Manager Center for Creative Leadership CCL Middle East and Africa لبدء عرض تقديمي بعنوان Leadership Development and Strategic Planning. Mr. Roger, the floor is yours.
Right, so hello everyone. Good to be here with you today. We have a short presentation that we have prepared for you from the Center for Creative Leadership, but we promise you that at the end of the presentation, we're going to share with you some additional resources that you can download in case you want to dive deep in some of the points that we're going to share with you. Also, there will be a panel discussion right after this presentation so we can dive deeper into some of the points that we discuss. So our topic is about leadership development strategies. So when we talk about leadership development strategies, if you look at most successful organizations, most of them, they aim for the future. There is a future that we want to reach at. It could be some challenges that we want to overcome. It could be an opportunities that we want to benefit from. So that's our aim. And then we formulate a business strategy in order for us to reach where we want to reach. And then the business strategy will drive our performance and we'll execute on it, and then we'll calibrate all along the way in order for us to reach where we're aiming. And that's what most organizations do, and that's okay. Now, top organizations, what they do is they also formulate a leadership strategy that is in alignment with the business strategy. Now, what do we mean by leadership strategy? Leadership strategy is basically asking ourselves as an organization, what type of leadership do we require in order for us to drive our business strategy? What type of leaders? How do we want them to think, act, behave? What are the set of skills, mindset, tool set that they need to have in order to accelerate the business strategy that we have? And that's a very important question to ask. I'll give you an example. Let's suppose we are an organization that our aim is to be innovative in our industry. We want to be the pioneer in the market. We want to create new solutions, think outside of the box, and service the market in a new way. That's one of our success that we want to aim for. And then we have formulated a lot of business strategy from revamping our line of businesses, from revamping our products, our services, and we have all those initiatives that are being articulated, communicated, mobilized in the organization. Now, what's going to happen if we don't have leaders that are bold, that takes risks, that allow themselves to make mistakes and allow others to make mistakes? If we don't have leaders that listen well to each other, that create the proper environment for ideas to thrive and collaborate with different stakeholders, then the business strategy is just going to find a lot of friction and it's not going to be accelerated the way that we think it's happened. And what's even more important is that the leadership strategy is going to shape the organizational culture. I'm sure many of you have heard the saying of culture eats strategy for breakfast. So what does this mean? If we go to our example of being an innovative organization, let's say we have a culture of fear, or a culture where we don't provide proper feedback to each other, or a culture that ideas or decisions are only taken from few people in the organization. No matter what we do, our business strategy is going to struggle. And the only way for our strategy to accelerate is to have and intentionally tailor the proper culture that can drive it. And the only thing that will shape our cultures are our leaders. And I'm not talking about the formal leaders. You can have the formal leaders or the informal leaders of the organizations. those are the ones that are going to be the champions, the ambassadors, and they're going to help you shape the culture that's required for your strategy. And that's very important when we talk about leadership development strategies. Because if we want to ask the question, how can we prepare our leaders for today and for the future? One, we need to align our leadership strategy with our business strategy. That's one. Now, two, if you look at the typical leadership pipeline, in any typical leadership pipeline of any organization, you might have something similar to this or something different. There are key leadership transitions. And those key leadership transitions, if we don't equip the leader with the proper mindset and skill set and tool set that will help them to transition from one role to the other, then we're building a leadership pipeline on a not very strong foundation. And a lot of those key transitions, they require time, they require attention, and they require us to be strategic for it. I'll give you an example. One of the most outlooked transition in a leadership pipeline is the transition from an individual contributor to a leader, leading others. That's one of the transitions. Now, a lot of the organizations don't give importance to that transition, but what happens, this is one of the most difficult transitions a person can have. Why? Because they are asked to tune down a lot of the skills that got them where they are, and now all of a sudden, they need to develop new set of skills to be able to get results through others, not through them. So they need to start delegating, coaching, developing others, empathizing with others, motivating others. That's a new set of skills that they have never been exposed to with the intensity that they will be exposed to when they start leading others. And then so forth and so on. So when we look at our leadership development strategies, we need to make sure we take into consideration those key leadership transitions and incorporate them with our development. Another point is, by the way, we've done a lot of research about these transitions, which we're going to share with you. Extensive research CCL has done, which we have identified the challenges and the competencies that are required at each level and provide you with a lot of solutions and resources that you can use. Now, another thing we need to keep in mind is that we don't want to develop our leaders for the present only. Dr. Abdelaziz was talking early in the morning about the VUCA and the BANI. So when we have a future we're aiming for and a strategy that will get us there, this is a known problem with a known solution, and that's fine. But the reality is there are unknown problems with unknown solutions that are going to come along the way. And this is what we call the leadership gap. So the leadership gap is making sure that our leaders are equipped for the future, because a lot of things are going to happen, from generational shift, from changing the way that the nature of work, from many disruptions that are going to come along, and those require different set of skills than the ones that we have planned in our strategy. And for that, we need to prepare our leaders to deal with uncertainty and to be able to deal with change, to be able to have different ways of working. It's a completely new set of dictionary that we need to tap into. So that's another element we need to keep in mind. Not only the business strategy of now, even if it's projected for 5 years, but making sure that they are ready for the future. Now, how do we do that? So another question comes into play is that, how can we prepare leaders beyond just skills? How can we have leadership development beyond just focusing on skills? So also we have done a lot of research at CCL, and we identified 2 types of leadership development, or development in general. The first one is the most common one, which we call the horizontal development. And this is about competence. This is about skills. This is about adding to the cup. And usually it's transferred from experts, from professionals, and then we add knowledge, we add skills, we add to the cup. And that's fine. At the same time, there is another type of leadership development, which is the vertical development. And it's not about adding to the cup. It's about making the cup bigger, which means it's about increasing the capacity of the leaders to be able to deal with uncertain and complex situations. So it's not about what do they do or what do they think. It's about how they think. It's about their perception about what's happening and how they make sense out of it. And this is a completely different type of development that will allow leaders not to only be ready to solve problems that are known, but to solve problems that are unknown and complex. Now, how do we do that? How do we make sure that leaders grow vertically? There are main three ingredients that we need to provide. You can include those ingredients in some of your leadership initiatives or development. However, they need to be incorporated in the organizational culture as well. Meaning, as HR leaders and as organizations and leaders, we need to make sure that we have those ingredients in the fabric of the organization. What are they? One, we need to provide what we call heat experiences. Heat experiences meaning exposing our leaders to situations where it's not comfortable, where it's gonna stretch them outside of their comfort zone, and engineer it strategically throughout our planning. What are the opportunities that we want to place our leaders in where they're gonna be stretching themselves, where they're gonna feel the heat? Not only that, we need to provide them with what we call colliding perspective. Meaning, are we making sure that our leaders engage with different people with different perceptions than them? Do we have a properly engineered process that makes sure that our leaders interact with each other and exchange ideas that are different, whether inside the organization or even outside the organization? Are we focusing only on ourselves, or do we send our leaders to see what's happening in the world, meet people that they don't resemble them, exchange ideas so they can have different perspective of the world and of the problems that they are facing? Three, providing them with the time for reflection. So what do I mean by this? Making sure that our leaders have the time to pause and reflect instead of being always on the run, and extract the learning from the situation that they are facing so they can apply it in the future. So if we engineer and create those conditions in our organizations, and we'll share with you a lot of strategies that can help you create this environment of vertical development in your organization, this is when we set our leaders for a vertical development growth, and only then they will be ready to deal with much more complex situations rather than being expert at solving the problems that we already know that's going to happen. So basically, how do we prepare? If I would summarize the 4 points: making sure that our leadership strategy aligns with our business strategy, minding the gap of the future, not preparing our leaders only for now, supporting the leaders on their key transitions in the leadership pipeline, and make sure that we incorporate vertical development, not only horizontal development, in our initiatives. So that's about it. We have placed for you some additional resources. If you want, you can scan and download a lot of the white papers and researches that CCL has done. And hopefully, in the panel, we can expand on some of the points that we have discussed as well. So that's my short time with you, and see you in a bit.